Yeah. So welcome to newcomers who've just come. Chavi, Roy, Mahesh, welcome. Okay, so all of you who've just joined, you're familiar. In fact, you're all pretty much familiar with what I'm saying, what I'm about to say. You can probably guess what I'm about to say. Nevertheless, let us keep a fresh mind and what we call the beginner's mind, so that it doesn't all sound like some kind of cliche, which is just being repeated, but something to put into practice. So here, let's bring ourselves to the present moment, which means we'll have to bring our attention to our body, something we are often not connected with sufficiently. So here, let's bring our attention to the body, yeah, as it sits here on the cushion or chair, however you are seated. Bring our attention to the sensation as you sit, the contact of your body with the chair or cushion, that very elemental contact. So it's not something just up in the head, it's not a thought, but actual sensation there. And let that allow you to come into the present moment. The past is very rich, it's very full of resources, full of hopes and fears and traumas and joys, and all sorts of things are there in our past, which is, an unimaginable past. But by being caught up in that, it doesn't really help us to develop a fresh awareness, sort of a freedom. We tend to get caught up in that, and that can be quite problematic. And of course, the future is rich with so many possibilities, is it not? So many possibilities, so many plans, so many expectations we may have, and so many anxieties we may have connected with short-term and medium and long-term future. But again, dwelling there is not going to be that beneficial right now. Can we maintain a very immediate kind of fresh being with ourselves right now, in our bodies at this moment? And within the realization that we're also together with all these other beings here who've joined us, each of them wishing for some kind of contentment and satisfaction in life, some happiness, not wanting suffering at all, just like me. So here we are all together right now, human beings in the similar predicament, having come to the realization, I'm sure all of us to some degree, life is something very challenging and quite difficult on occasion. That's putting it mildly. It's very challenging. It demands a lot of us. So if we are constantly rushing around in past and future and so forth, it doesn't help us deal with what's happening right now. So let's bring ourselves into the state of present moment, fresh kind of awareness, which includes a sense of gratitude for this opportunity we all have together as human beings with our extraordinary faculties and potential. As we sit, and we also as we begin to tune into the breath, the natural breath, it's entering and leaving our bodies. As we tune into that, we can also work with the motivation. I mentioned it a little in terms of present moment awareness, gratitude. Well, why do we sit here? Why are we here together? Okay, seeking happiness, seeking some insight, seeking some togetherness maybe, or maybe some of us are just bored, so this is something to do. Maybe, that's okay. But really, whoever we connect with in this life, have connected so far, are connecting with right now. I'm talking mainly human beings right now. All of them, every single one, including the ones, that we haven't been especially fond of, or who have been actually a little bit unkind to us even, when we really, think about their situation, and I'm thinking of these difficult people right now, slightly difficult people maybe, really when we think about them from the Dharma perspective, from a open-minded, vaster perspective, they're just sentient beings who are driven by, who are dominated by various tendencies, emotions, feelings, disturbing emotions, impulses. They want to be happy. They don't want to, have a moment's suffering, really. But due to the power of the disturbing thoughts, disturbing emotions, due to imbalance in body and mind, due to multiple causes, environmental, societal, family, mainly the inner causes, the inner dynamics, the inner dynamics. Due to that, they're suffering. So when we really think about others, whoever, we can generate a sense of connectedness. We can understand how they might be behaving the way they are. And definitely how they are, just like me, an aspiring, suffering, occasionally happy human being. So how can we, totally neglect them? How can we push them away and say, I don't care about you? They are so much like us, so very much like us. But it is difficult because they may push our buttons, as we say, especially our emotional buttons, activate our fear, our aversion, occasionally our longing, our love-hate, all sorts of things. But in essence, if we look at them, we really pay attention to what we are as human beings together, we are simply all worthy objects of love and compassion. Aren't we? This is not a lecture. We're investigating, aren't we? We're investigating together. Yeah. So we sit, practice together in order to develop this awareness, this perspective, generate, activate the Buddha qualities within us and try and see more and more of those qualities in others. The kindness, the openness, the warmth, the sheer intelligence. The intelligence of others is extraordinary. And if it were tempered with a kind of quiet wisdom and compassion and love, how extraordinary it would be, how even more extraordinary it would be. So anyway, let there be a sense of togetherness, and also a sense of what one teacher calls a sense of loneliness. We're all also finding ourselves that we're alone in many ways. We may be living with other people or persons, but we are basically alone with our own mind, our thoughts, and hopes and fears and so forth. And I think a lot of us realize that. So as we practice, we recognize our loneliness, our aloneness, and we are responsible for working with that and with our minds and our situation. And that may require a lot of bravery to not give in to just search for constant entertainment and little satisfactions all the time. But that loneliness is always, I think, also together with what is a reaching out towards others, isn't it? We want to reach out. So there's what one teacher calls combination of love affair and loneliness. So this enables a spiritual person to, or someone who is following this path, to constantly reach out towards other people. So that dynamic, that dance between loneliness and love affair with the world. With the world, we're not talking of love affair with just one person. That's kind of limited. Although we're not judging it, but that's very limited. We could extend ourselves more than that. And when we see how others are striving so hard to be happy, we feel for them. We wish them to be well and happy. We wish them to be able to truly find the wise, skillful means, causes for happiness, and to eradicate suffering. So how wonderful it would be if all beings were free of suffering and its causes, and were to experience happiness and its causes. That would be so wonderful. So just spend a few minutes reflecting on these words, which are aiming to create the right atmosphere and motivation for our practice together. Let your body be relaxed, awake, upright, and still. Okay. And then we'll sit quietly together. Continue that. And you can, those who wish, can be aware of the breath, sense of openness, clarity as we watch the breath without expectation, without feeling uptight, without being upset when the mind wanders, just recognizing, bringing the mind gently back to the breath. Those who wish may prefer to be aware of body. You could start with the crown of the head and slowly move down, noticing any sensations in your body. That could be very, very useful. And you might have areas of tension, for example, in your neck, shoulders. You can just gently bathe those areas with awareness. Just be aware of what's happening in those various parts of the body. And you can practice letting go and relaxing as you breathe out, feeling that movement of tension in the body and allowing it to perhaps dissolve with the out breath. So we'll practice quietly together for a little while. And the main thing is to maintain stillness in the body, a sense of being at ease and relaxed, not uptight. It's not a test, it's not a competition. But together with that, a sense of being awake, being aware. So we'll sit together for a little while, maybe 8 to 10 minutes. Starting now. Just another half minute or so. Slowly prepare for the next stage of the session. If you need to take a short break to stand up or stretch, please do that. Have a drink. I hope everybody is okay and comfortable. So we'll continue with our investigation. It's an investigation, not any kind of final commentary on this remarkable text on transforming the mind. It's remarkable because it's dealing with one of the hardest things to do in this life, which is to transform our attitude from cherishing ourselves, basically being caught up with ourselves in a self-centered way, often in a fearful way, and transforming that into, genuine concern for others, genuine reaching out to others, authentic reaching out, not to promote ourselves, not to look good in other people's eyes, not, we're not doing this to gain brownie points, to gain, status in our group or society. Just the sheer willingness and aspiration, the sheer, some joy and happiness in reaching out, working with other people in some way. Seeing the other is very precious. This is what this text is about. Seeing others is very kind. Seeing how it's not only for mundane things like our body and food and so forth, clothing, that we owe so much to others, but for any other kind of spiritual realization, up to and including enlightenment, that all depends on other people. To develop any of the qualities we're looking at here, it all depends on our living with, practicing with other people, working with others, to promote our generosity, our patience, our attitude towards them, our moral conduct, our ethical stance. It all depends on other people. It can't be practiced, none of this can be practiced in isolation, can it? Working with anger, working with people who give us a hard time. These very powerful circumstances with potential for growth, some kind of growth, all depend on other people, right? All depend on others. And then we just also experience a lot of what we might just call sheer kindness, what we also recognize as kindness is that people helping us in all sorts of ways, unbelievable ways, helping us. However independent we think we may be, often we think we're very smart and independent and self-made, but we're not, are we? We depend on others. So the whole tenor of this text is to see others as so precious, so supreme, so worthy of our affection or kindness, and not to take others for granted. Yeah. Okay, so Sagar has to go. What to do? One of our dear members. All right. So now, I'm not going to go through all the previous verses. I suggest people look at them and reflect on them, those who haven't looked at this text before. But remember that the essence of it is to see how self-concern, self-preoccupation, self-centeredness, leading up to, that, the whole spectrum of being very concerned about ourselves, we're way up, the whole spectrum up to being very selfish and caring very much for ourselves and neglecting others. That whole spectrum of activity and thought based on that attitude is all leading to suffering, leading to problems. See how that is the case. This excessive self-concern is simply a cause for anxiety and pain. And the opposite quality of reaching out to others in a wholehearted way is the cause of happiness, cause of maybe relaxed mind even. If you think about how you feel when you are reaching out and working with others spontaneously as much as possible, how that is a cause of happiness. This concern, this for others, takes one out of this cocoon, this claustrophobia of excessive self-concern, which is so claustrophobic, so like being in a prison, caught up in anxious thoughts and greedy thoughts and angry thoughts and all the rest of it, wanting thoughts. So obviously, all of this requires a lot of courage to actually see what one's doing, see how one usually behaves, one's habitual patterns, having the courage to face that and see how that is a kind of self-destructive process and how we might be able to change it, and which will not be easy because we've built up habit patterns over many lifetimes, the Buddha would say, not just this one. So it's challenging, more than challenging. We require a lot of courage to face ourselves, courage to change things where necessary. As one teacher said, it all depends on courage. One of the great lamas of the past put it very simply. It all depends on courage. We don't have the courage, nothing happens. And of course, one could say a lot about this, about fear and fearlessness. We could say a lot about that. I'm going to read something because it's so connected with it, with the basis of this text, which I've said is being willing to face oneself and face one's self-cherishing activity, which is automatic because it's become such a habit. So, and one of the motivating factors of that is fear. And here one teacher is talking about how cowardice is trying to ignore fear, pretending there's no fear, not acknowledging the reality of fear. And we're afraid of death, we're afraid we can't handle the demands of the world. We feel inadequate, therefore. We feel like our lives are overwhelming somehow. Working in the world is even more overwhelming. So our fear is there in the background, and it manifests as restlessness and a craving for entertainment. Innumerable strategies we employ to take our minds off fear. We take tranquilizers, we do a lot of yoga. Of course, this is all to be interpreted. We watch television, get just bogged down in things, don't we? Internet, and, movies, go to a bar, have a beer. So from the coward's point of view, there shouldn't be a gap. We should fill our lives with activity all the time. We don't want to feel bored at all, because if we were to feel bored, if there were to be a gap, a space, then we would get closer to our fear. And that's the last thing we want to do, is face our fear, this kind of existential fear we have. Or, we delay things, we procrastinate because we're afraid of doing something. So we try to not think about it. So we have to look at fear. Look at our fear of, whatever, also including death. We are afraid of death if you think about it. You may not think about it much if you're still quite young, but if you're over 40 or 50, you might think more about death. Or you might think about it more anyway, having lost people you know. And just being more aware of these things. So death is there as an ever-present reality. So we need to slow down and face our fear. Work with that. That's not easy. Fear of specific things, and just a feeling of restlessness and unease in the body and mind. We relax with fear, watch and relax, maybe something changes, the perspective changes, the hard, fearful quality of it changes. Of course, we are lazy. At least I can be very lazy. So that we just don't do what has to be done. We don't face things. We don't act appropriately. So we need to, as my aunt told me something recently, it was very useful. There's a lot of stuff has to be done, a lot of work has to be done, things to catch up on. She said, things don't just resolve themselves, you have to work hard at things. Things don't resolve themselves. Things you may feel anxious about doing or not wanting to do, like, anything as mundane as closing a bank account or, doing this, doing that, things that require effort and going out in the heat to banks and other places. So one just has to do it, one has to get over one's laziness. She didn't say all that, but she said things don't resolve themselves. We have to do the work. So we can be very lazy. Just wanting comfortable time, just to be comfortable. So these 8 verses we cannot practice them, I think, if we're going to be lazy and full of fear. We have to face these things. Yeah. And it's certainly not just a theoretical text. No way. We're meant to take this as daily practice. As the 3rd verse says, that's a very practical one. We can see how that's meant to be practiced all the time. How we need to be probing into our minds, and as soon as mental and emotional afflictions arise, seeing that they are a danger to myself and other people, in encouraging us to confront them, face them, and to avert them. Yeah. Yeah. So I wanted to just mention that. It's something in general, that need for facing our fear, being brave, stepping out of habitual patterns of behavior, which are obviously not serving us anymore, just creating more problems. The sense of being stuck in the same place, like that. And here, where we're really stuck is by identifying so strongly with me, I, me, mine, all the time. I, me, mine, I, me, mine. Yeah. I hope this is making some sense. If anybody wants to say anything already, I think I've been talking for a long time. Anybody want to butt in and say something? Comment on something? Please feel free to do that. No? Something in the chat, I think. Okay. So nothing yet. All right. There may be something later. But you can put your hand up if there's something you want to say. Okay, let's look at one verse which we had a look at, but which will show us how these verses are a challenge to our habitual ways of behaving. And that is the 6th verse, which is saying that when you've helped somebody and you have great hopes in somebody, you've placed such great hopes in somebody, then in return for your help, they mistreat you. They mistreat you in extremely hurtful ways, the verse says. May I regard that person, as my precious teacher. Good grief. Amazing. You help someone, you help someone, and they return your help with something that harms you. You're supposed to see that person as your teacher. You're not supposed to get upset. You're not supposed to go into a whole emotional turmoil. We're being asked to generate a different response for someone who's hurt us, and not just hurt us randomly. I mean, it's like we help them, for heaven's sake. I helped this person. I sponsored their education. As a parent, I looked after this, my child, I gave birth to them and looked after them. And what do? They ignore me. They hurt me by saying I was this, that, and the other. I was this kind of parent, that kind of parent. And, I don't want to talk to you right now, etc., etc. Or what do you do then? You could fall into a pit of despair or anger, mixture of those emotions. Isn't it? Think of some situation where you help someone. It could have been a very small thing. You help them for a few minutes or a few hours. It doesn't have to be days or years. You help them and they respond in a very ungrateful way, hurtful way. Were you really helping them? And then they accuse you of not helping them properly or doing the wrong thing. Or I told you, I didn't want this, I wanted that. You think you've helped someone in a certain way, given them something they need or want. They say, this isn't what I wanted. You mean the wrong thing, blah, blah, blah. They could accuse you of all kinds of things. Don't you know what I need? Or why are you patronizing me in this way? I don't need your help, blah, blah, blah. Whatever. Then how do we behave? How is that going to affect us? Usually, it's going to be devastating for us, so painful, like someone, poking a sword in our heart. Someone's ungrateful like that. So that shows how attached we are to ourselves, to our having done something for that person and having some hope, some expectation, maybe. A need, of course, a need or expectation to be thanked at least, or for that person to, whatever, advertise the fact that oneself had helped them. That would be nice. If they told your other mutual friends how kind you'd been, that would be nice, wouldn't it? That would be a nice massage to our need, to our ego, to our wish to be acknowledged and so forth. But this person doesn't do that. So the teaching says, here is our real teacher. Here is the person who's really, really helping us by showing very clearly our self-concern, our self-cherishing, not being able to handle this lack of, repaying our kindness with harm, seeing how we cannot cope with it somehow. So in this situation, this is the teacher who is teaching us patience, who is teaching us how much further we have yet to go. How much further we have to go before we get, think, oh, well, I'm quite a good practitioner, really. I can go out in the hot sun and, queue up in banks and stuff. I'm pretty patient. I didn't get angry with the lady who said she'd do my work 10 days ago, months ago. I'm still not angry with her. I'm quite patient. I'm quite a good practitioner. But then there are some circumstances. If you had helped that lady in the bank a lot with something in the past, then she still behaves in this way with you. Doesn't do your work, delays, gets upset that you're reminding her, then we would feel different. That would be the test. Someone you have helped and in whom we have placed great hopes. Of course, that's a bit of a hint, isn't it? We've placed great hopes in this person. Maybe that's a mistake. Maybe that's not so skillful in samsara, to place too much hope in anything or anyone. Too much hope on circumstances which are changing moment by moment. People's minds are changing, people's attitudes. The way they behave with us is changing, isn't it? Day to day. And that can be very disconcerting. One day someone's very warm and kind, the next day they're standoffish and appear cold. That can be very difficult for us. We really get confused and upset. So this 6th verse is really something. It also makes us check, makes us see how people can behave in this way. How can they behave in this way? They must be under the influence of something, right? You've helped someone, they're harming you in return. What's going on? It's not magic. It's not some conspiracy against you. Why are they behaving that way? So there are many causes and conditions according to Lord Buddha. Immediate, long-term, in the past. Certainly, there's something making their mind not respond in what we might call a normal fashion. It's normal to feel some kind of gratitude to people who help, and to at least, express that in some way. But if the person is acting in an opposite way, there must be some strong reason for that. So that has to be investigated, or at least imaginatively worked with. Why would someone behave like that? The Buddha said, this is samsara, First Noble Truth. This is suffering. Life, it is suffering. All is suffering in the nature of dukkha. People's minds are under the control of the disturbing emotions. How else do we expect them to behave, right? How else would they behave? Look at our own behavior sometimes. Come on. It's not as though we're squeaky clean and, pristine, pure saints. No way. We behave in a very unusual and, very inappropriate manner sometimes, don't we? To put it mildly. At least I do. Maybe none of you do. But I have a feeling we've all behaved in very ridiculous, harmful ways. So why does that happen? Normally, one manifestation, of course, is you can be mild-mannered, so-and-so, and your other avatar is Superman. That's something. But then we can be nice, gentle, sort of this person, but underneath there's something else. We also behave in very aggressive, not nasty ways occasionally. Why? So again, this verse makes us also check samsara. How does samsara work? Why do people behave the way they do? It's not without cause. Yeah. Yes. Okay. Next verse we'll begin to look at, and then we'll have some discussion. The next verse says, in brief, may I offer benefit and joy to all my mothers, both directly and indirectly. May I quietly take upon myself all the hurts and pains of my mothers. So in general, it's saying, the job of the Bodhisattva is to offer benefit and joy to others, to lead them to enlightenment, liberation, enlightenment. Everyone is regarded as mothers because that long-term perspective of everybody having been one's mother. Or if you wanted to take it another way, you could say it's just like everybody is really kind, just like a mother is kind. Everybody is kind in the sense that everybody, I depend on everybody for help and to have as objects of compassion. If I want to develop on the path, I need to take everyone as an object of compassion, not leaving out even one. So in that sense, everybody is kind to be an object of compassion for me. So all my mothers, directly and indirectly, there may be many direct methods, many indirect methods to help others. Direct method. Well, one can give material objects, one can give loving kindness and teachings and instructions and help in many ways directly, or one can do it indirectly by hinting at things or by pointing people in a certain direction, or even sending them, a link, what you think will be a very beneficial link, something for them to read or engage in, which will be helpful for them. That's kind of a little bit indirect. Pray for people, many ways to help others. But the main point of this verse is the last two lines. May I quietly take upon myself all hurts and pains of my mothers. This refers to an amazing practice the Bodhisattvas engage in, called taking and giving, which involves taking on the suffering of others and offering others all the one's happiness and joy. The idea here being that one's selfish, self-cherishing attitude is a cause of all pain and suffering in the world, and the cherishing others is the cause of all happiness. So what prevents us from cherishing others is the self-cherishing attitude, the selfishness residing in the mind, in the heart. So that needs to be destroyed. That needs to be eliminated. The self-cherishing attitude. Not the self, not the person, the self-cherishing, that hard, vulnerable often kind of sense that I have to take care of myself. I'm number one. I need to be cherished more than anybody else. So here it's saying, we have exchanged that attitude. We turn around, we stop just being concerned with ourselves, and we show more concern to others. We exchange ourselves with others mentally. And we realize that others are suffering so much. So in order to build up the strength of our compassion, we willingly imagine we are taking on the suffering of others. And so traditionally this is done joining it with the breathing process. So while breathing in, we breathe in the pain and suffering of others. Imagine it's ripening on oneself. It's actually coming in and destroying the selfishness, the self-cherishing attitude at the heart. And then the other part of the practice is to give happiness, to take on suffering and to give happiness. But here it's mainly talking about the taking upon oneself. So one takes upon oneself the suffering of others, the causes of suffering of others, which are the disturbing emotions, the suffering environments, the painful environments of others we imagine taking on. It's a very vast practice, and it, of course, will sound very strange initially to be doing this. Because what we want for ourselves is happiness, right? We want to imagine lovely things being taken in, breathing in, pleasant environments, beautiful landscapes, all the food we love best, everything that brings us joy. We want to breathe that in. And of course, there's a place for doing that kind of practice too. But here, we're not doing that. We're taking on the suffering of others, the painful situations of others. So the way my teacher, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, teaches it, it's like you really, in a visceral way, you imagine the pains, the suffering environments of animals, of hungry ghosts, of hell beings, and of course other human beings. We're having such a hard time. I mean, unimaginable pain and suffering. Some people, if you just take humans, some people are having right now, isn't it? All over the world, not just Ukraine, but Africa, India, I mean, everywhere. It's tremendous suffering of conflict, starvation, need, fear, all these things happening for people, which is really unimaginable in one way. So we imagine we're breathing all of that in the form of sort of dark energy, dark smoke, like that. Breathing it in, it's striking our hard selfishness at the heart, which we visualize like a kind of a rock at the heart. That kind of practice is being referred to here. Now, may I do it quietly? Matlab, we're not advertising this. We're not advertising our marvelous bodhisattva practice. We're not going around breathing in a very obvious, dramatic way. So the people ask us, "So, what are you doing?" And then you say, "Well, I'm kind of, kind of doing this Mahayana practice, to enhance my compassion. It's quite an advanced practice, and I'm doing this." So we don't behave like that. We do it quietly in our room or wherever we are. People needn't know we're doing that practice. We see someone suffering. This can be very, very practical. We see an animal, a person suffering where we are, near us. We imagine we're breathing in their pain, breathing in their suffering, out of love and compassion, especially the wish for them to be free. We take it on. We feel it smashing our fearful, selfish attitude, destroying it. So like they say, if it hurts, breathe it in. If it feels good, breathe it out. Share it with others. Because the other part of this practice is giving of happiness, giving of joy, giving of our positive energy, giving of ourselves, imagining that with the out-breath, typically. So this is strange in the beginning, but understandable if we see it in the context of how self-cherishing is seen as the big demon. The cause of all suffering is that self-cherishing, grasping at a self, I, me, mine, and everything that comes from that, the caring, taking care of oneself more than others. Yeah. So it makes sense there that we're going to reverse that and imagine not just keeping all the good things for ourselves, wanting the good for ourselves. But no, take on the suffering of others. Gladly take it on oneself. So this you can see as an extraordinary, very brave, very unusual attitude. And which, as many have said, we shouldn't try if we already have a lot of problems with self-image and self-esteem. Maybe this is not something to jump into very easily. Certainly not before you have imagined taking on your own sufferings first, which can also be done. You imagine yourself, your suffering self in front of you, and imagine taking on your own suffering, giving it to your selfishness, and then going on to taking on the suffering of others. So we have to be careful here. This path is not about harming oneself, hurting oneself, being unkind to oneself. That's not the point. Why would that? Why would we want to do that? It is about harming the selfish attitude, the selfishness, which is the cause of our pain, which makes us cocoon-like, claustrophobic, hanging on to me and mine in that fearful, anxious way. That's the cause of our suffering, and it causes suffering for others. If we check, we might find that to be the case. Of course, don't take what I'm saying for granted. So it has to be checked. Yeah, let's have some discussion. I've been talking for far too long. So maybe we can have full screen again. Nivitaji, side-by-side gallery without the text. How do we do that? Thank you, Chavi. You have to leave. Thank you very much for joining. Maybe see you on Sunday. Anyway, Saturday there's a program coming. Watch your posting with John Landor. Very, very good old student of the teachers. I used to know him in the late 70s and early 80s in England. Very, very good scholar and practitioner, and author, editor. He's a session with him on Saturday, I think Saturday evening. Are you there, Nivita? Can you get rid of the text so that I can see the people? How do we do that? Nivita, maybe not there. Let's see. Sorry. Meanwhile, if anyone wants to say something, please do. You can. You are unmuted. You can unmute yourselves. Does anyone wish to say anything?
Thank you, Kabirji.
Yeah, thank you. तो ठीक है, लेकिन कुछ बताना है तो बोलिए.
Good to hear you again.
Well, that may be so, but I get bored with the sound of my own voice alone. Yeah, nothing, no comments. Very controversial verses, very.
Good evening, Kabirji, if I could come in. This is Roy.
Hi.
Kabirji, I just want to share my experiences in the past couple of days and weeks, which have been quite harrowing. Typical Delhiite situation. I stay in a DDA flat, and the owners of the flat below have changed hands. And the new owners have bribed just about everybody, from the MCD to the police, and they have started upon a rampage of expansion.
They started a what?
Expansion. expanding their DDA flat.
I see. Okay.
And with scant regard to the convenience of others,
Acha.
regarding the law, the less spoken, the better. About their regard for law, that's all set aside. But
Yeah.
drills are happening, hammers are pounding, and
Ah.
workers are all over, no masks. I
Are
open the
they,
window, and there is a
I,
worker standing
yeah.
outside my window. So I've
Uh-huh.
been trying to engage with them to try and work out, acceptable arrangement for timings and for the fact that the basic structure of the flat shouldn't be changed because it's one block, a DDA
Right.
flat, 3 levels. So we are all interconnected pretty closely with the same supporting pillar. And it's like talking to people who are just inured to anyone's concerns.
Are they
So
breaking the law?
So sometimes when one encounters these situations face to face,
Uh,
you feel like giving them a very tough time. Not too much patience or compassion
yeah.
comes to the fore. So
Yeah.
I think being in Delhi and India is perhaps more challenging than many other places.
Could be, of course. And the challenge, it depends on the person. Are they breaking the law?
Absolutely, absolutely.
So why is the law not taking its course? Why
Because
isn't
because
someone?
because the law has been bribed and huge amounts.
Acha, they've been bribed.
Yeah,
I see.
I contacted the MCD guys. They came over. I called the police. They said,
Oh,
साहब हमें पता है कि भाई आप भी पहले सरकार में थे,
oh,
लेकिन ये तो होता है डीडीए में, आप थोड़ा सा कॉम्प्रोमाइज कीजिए कि भाई वो आपके लिए भी कुछ करेंगे, मतलब.
Have you tried talking to the people involved?
Yes, absolutely,
What do they say?
absolutely. They keep lying.
I see.
In the face they'll say something and then they'll just do what they feel like doing.
Well, this is a wonderful, we could add one verse, This sounds to me like verse number 4.
I see.
When I see beings of unpleasant character, oppressed by strong negativity and suffering, may I hold them dear, for they are rare to find, as if I have discovered a jewel treasure. So this doesn't mean you don't admonish them and try and get them to stop making noise, but it means at an inner level, you take this also as a teaching. They are oppressed, obviously, by strong negativity, that you can see. Okay, they don't listen to other people, they just do what they want. They are suffering, obviously, in general, but also if they really do have a very negative mind and attitude and are very selfish, they are suffering, they will at least suffer a lot more than others in this and future lives. So there's that. So the first 2 lines are definitely correct. So in that case, if these people who are behaving so badly, and of course giving us a hard time, by the way, what time do they stop work? Do they work at night?
Fortunately not. The workers just leave.
Wow, isn't that amazing? So what time do they leave? 6 o'clock, 7
They
o'clock?
leave. Yeah, they leave around 6. Around 6 they leave.
Well, that's amazing. So you do have 12 to 16 hours possibly of quiet from that, is
That's
it?
true. That's true.
So we'll look at that as a little blessing, I guess. Easier said than done from where I am. Of course, we have our share of wedding noises and other things in Kushinagar, but yeah. So you have maybe 10 a.m. or 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. They're just doing 9 to 5, 9 to 6 work. So if you look at it in that way, and if you get some good earbuds, ear plugs,
Yeah.
and a good set of earphones, and just plug into your favorite music, man. Get out your rock and roll favorites from the 60s, Get out your favorite music, your bhajans, your famous speeches, and just go to town, man. It gives you a chance.
Yeah.
Listen to all these things you never listened to. Now you have to listen or you go gaga. So you can thank them for, being able to listen to Beethoven's Ninth Symphony again after so many years or whatever it is. Full blast, of course. So you can't hear them. What else can I say? You can quietly sit there going crazy with upset and, thinking how unreasonable they are, which they are. But this text, I guess, if we're to look at this, it's saying, well, welcome to samsara. This is how people behave. The people behave even worse. You're lucky they're not bombing your house somehow, or, setting time bombs. They often put landmines on the staircase, for the other residents. So you're much better than being in a war zone. So it might sound like a war zone for a while, but I can't imagine what it feels like to have a missile hit your block. Just the sound of that, the trauma of that, and then having to leave your house because it's uninhabitable, and packing your belongings, what's left, and heading for the border. My God. I guess, that's one way to look at it. Easy for me to say, of course. Thank you, Benu Sarmistha. Thank you. So what do you think? Is it possible to look at it from that angle, however unreasonable these people seem? Is this helpful, Roy-san?
Yeah, of course it is. Of course it is. And your talks also have been in my mind while all this discomfort is going on. But it's not easy.
Not easy.
It's not easy.
But I think you can make it easier.
Yeah.
With practical as well as inner measures and these, really it does give you a chance to listen to things that you wouldn't have thought to otherwise, with headphones on. It gives you a chance to, say, look, wow, this is how difficult it is to bear just this sound and vibration. I mean, it's not like they're abusing you, right?
No, not at all.
They're not stopping you from eating or drinking or going out, or they're not doing any of that. They're just creating a hell of a racket and breaking some laws, which are not maybe directly going to affect your standard of living, are they? Actually, it's not making the whole building more dangerous or something.
I hope not. I
hope not. Well, I hope not too. But look on the bright side of life. Have you seen that movie, Life of Brian or whatever?
No, I haven't.
You're not familiar with British comedy series? Okay. Anyway, there's this dreadful scene, wonderful scene if you're a British humor addict, at the end where the Christ and a few people are being crucified. Right, they have that scene, and this one of the members of this comedy team strikes up a little tune saying, "Look on the bright side of life," da-da, 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 like that. So look on the bright side of life. So I don't know what bright side he was looking at, because he was being crucified. But anyway, of course, that created tremendous hullabaloo. A lot of Christians didn't like that, understandably. But that's Monty Python's Flying Circus humor for you. So to look at the bright side, a lot of things you're still able to eat, drink, sleep at night, because these people mercifully aren't there. So it's not that bad, maybe. But it's not nice.
Yeah. But I really realized that perhaps sound can be the most upsetting manner, upsetting circumstance to be in.
Yeah, vibrations like that. They had this thing in the news that they thought some Russians, embassies or places were directing certain sounds, very, vibrations at American diplomats, which are making them feel sick, which of course would be possible to do, I'm sure, certain vibrations, so it cannot be heard physically by the ear, but certain low or high, vibrations might be incredibly damaging for the system somehow. But the ones you hear, there's all kinds of sounds, weren't there, which are dreadful. Drills, high-speed drills, banging. It's. I hope it doesn't last too long. I hope it lasts as long as it takes for you to actualize the meaning of these 8 verses. Maybe it will ripen your mind very quickly
Perhaps,
to understand the 8 verses and become a great practitioner of them. Certainly the 4th verse.
Hopefully. Yes,
You'll be able to teach the 4th verse to others from experience.
Yeah.
I'm just teaching from mainly from theory, but you'll be able to teach from experience.
But really, I really feel that we should always now look towards being in a setting where noise levels are low. Should be an
Noise
element
doesn't?
where noise levels are low. If we ever have a situation or option to choose where we want to be.
That would be nice to have that choice, but samsara isn't always like that. Of course, you're welcome to find a house in the hills. Thank you, Vishal. Thank you. Yeah, you're welcome to try and find a house in a quiet area somewhere. Even there, someone might buy land nearby and start digging and drilling and making a hullabaloo there, or decide to have rave parties in the hills.
Very
in a
true.
quiet spot. They invite their friends for big parties. You never know what you're going to get. So somehow we have to just cope with sound as sound without the accompanying emotional affect from our side.
Yes. That is the key. That is the key.
It's lovely to have silence and quiet, especially in city landscapes, I find. There's just too much sound all the time. Traffic, and sirens, and aeroplanes, and all this and that. Yeah, it's great to have silence. But when we don't have it, what are we going to do? We have to transform that situation as well. I guess that's the message. Okay, just a few more inputs.
So can I ask a question?
Yeah, it's usually the time when you do, Anushree, please.
Okay, so sir, there's this, I will show you the book. So this book I'm reading. So the teachings from Tibet advise guidance from great lamas. And so there is a chapter in which His Holiness the Dalai Lama, he gives a commentary on the 8 verses of thought transformation, which I think are these verses only. So one of the questions, like the questioner, he or she says that in the Bodhi Karya Vatara, Shantideva says, if for the sake of others I cause harm to myself, I shall acquire all that is magnificent. So I don't know what magnificent refers to over here. And then
Could you
His Holiness
repeat the verse? Repeat the verse slowly, please.
Okay. So the question.
Just the verse, just the verses, just the lines you quoted.
If for the sake of.
I can't hear you. Can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. If for the sake of others I cause harm to myself, I shall acquire all that is magnificent. On the other hand, so the question is, on the other hand, Nagarjuna says that one should not mortify the body. So in what way does Shantideva mean one should harm oneself? Then His Holiness replies, this does not mean that you have to hit yourself on the head or something like that. Shantideva is saying that at times when strong self-cherishing thoughts arise, you have to argue very strongly with yourself and use forceful means to subdue them. In other words, you have to harm your self-cherishing mind. You have to distinguish clearly between the I that is completely obsessed with its own welfare and the I that is going to become enlightened. There is a big difference. And you have to see this verse of the Bodhi Karya Vatara in the context of the verses that precede and follow it. There are many different ways the I is discussed. The grasping at a true identity for the I, the self-cherishing I, the I that we join with in looking at things from the viewpoint of others and so forth. You have to see the discussion of the self in
What's your
these three
question?
different.
What's your question on
So
Shri?
how
Again, a
many?
very long quotation. Could you get your point, please?
So what? How many types of I are there? Sir is
Yeah.
talking about.
Yeah, I don't know. Many. Yeah, you have to read it and understand it. But what don't you understand? Or are you just making a comment? What's
No,
difficult for
sir.
you?
Like one is that like when you cause harm to yourself, so he says that we have to harm our self-cherishing
Yeah,
mind and not
that's
like
clear.
hit us.
So
Yeah,
that's easy,
and
right? That's
and also
understandable.
yeah,
Mhm.
and then like he says we have to distinguish between the different types of I. So how do we identify them? What are the different types of I? Like one is
Yeah.
which is obsessed with
Yeah,
own
yeah.
welfare.
So just focus on two of them, then don't get too complicated. Yeah, there's the ones that he mentions first, the one that is totally obsessed with one's own happiness and so forth. That has to be distinguished from from another kind of I that is, seeking liberation, or a more normal kind of sense of I. That's quite easy to understand. But anyway, just read slowly yourself, the other things that he's mentioning, and reflect on it. I don't think there's anything very difficult there. But there are innumerable aspects of I, aren't there? Of ego, innumerable mind, mental factors, and so forth. But the main thing there is not to misunderstand the advice to harm yourself. It's to harm the self-cherishing attitude. No one is saying we have to harm ourselves. That would be counter to Buddhist teachings. Yeah. That's clear, right?
Yes, sir.
The main
Thank you.
point is
Thank
clear.
you, sir.
Hmm?
Okay, thank you, sir. I was thinking like yeah, I was just searching like the parts which I didn't understand. If I have another question, I was just searching for that. Yeah, but this is clear. Yeah, thank you.
That's the main point, I think, of this question of the person asked. Because we could easily say, oh, how does harming oneself help in any way? It's not harming yourself, it's harming the self-cherishing attitude, which is the main cause of our suffering. So we're harming the sickness. We're taking a medicine for our sickness. We're not harming ourselves, we're harming the sickness that we have, if you look at it that way. If you take medicine as harming the sickness. And it's Bodhicharya Avatara, the guide to the Bodhisattva's deeds. Yeah, guide to the Bodhisattva's way of life. Bodhisattva Charya Avatara, that famous text. Yeah, which we keep on quoting. That's the Sanskrit title. Yeah. Anybody else? Anybody have something else? Everyone's just saying thank you. I've got to leave, gotta go, gotta leave. I'll have to leave now. Thank you. Four sentient beings. They have to leave. We all have to leave. Yeah. Divyanshu,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Sujit, anything? No? Okay. It's 8 o'clock, an hour and a half. That's good. Without the electricity going, that is amazing. Amazing blessing. Yesterday, the electricity went so many times, but maybe just today is our lucky day. And so this is the proper inauguration of our Maitreya project Kushinagar Wi-Fi. So we dedicate that this Wi-Fi also works properly for a while and helps us do what we have to do here. That the UPS arrives and works. Of course, we must dedicate that we begin to really understand these verses and practice them due to developing courage and perseverance, energy, the opponent of laziness. And we begin to understand our fears and face our fears so that we're not avoiding them our whole life. That would be amazing. Yeah. And we can start practicing some of these verses. The third we should be practicing a lot anyway, checking our minds again and again for what is disturbing, what is harming us and others, which would be also including negative thoughts against oneself, not just about negative thoughts towards others, anything like that, anything that endangers oneself and others. And I strongly confront them, avert them. But all of them, all of these verses we've looked at, they all have to be practiced. Just holding other people dear, first verse. We often forget, we get so fed up with people. Roy Saab's getting so fed up with these people. They're downstairs or upstairs, I can't remember. Anyway, wherever they are, that he may be forgetting occasionally that they surpass even a wish-fulfilling gem. You are forgetting that, Roy Saab, that these people are surpassing the wish-fulfilling gem. Wish-fulfilling gem gets you anything mundane that you wish for. This text is saying these sentient beings surpass even that. So how about that, partner? Yeah, that's amazing. So, and you have to hold them as superior. Are they upstairs or downstairs from you?
They are downstairs.
Yeah, well, don't look down on them. Yeah, you have to hold them as superior. You have to think they're above me. Yeah, and of course they are unpleasant. They are strongly negative. They are not out of jealousy. Well, maybe out of whatever, they are treating you wrongly with noise, and so forth. So all of this comes very useful, I think. Their work is happening at a very opportune time as we look at these verses. Very opportune time for you, Roy-san.
Yes. I'll do my best.
I quietly rejoice here that you have this opportunity. I rejoice in your good fortune. Yeah, how lucky you are. I just have a few crazy, loudspeakers occasionally when they have their weddings. It's still the wedding season. So I have very, very loud karaoke nonsense and other things blaring, which luckily I'm a bit deaf in one ear already, so that helps. TK, so let's dedicate ourselves and others never to be separated from genuine teachings, from all the teachers to have long and healthy lives, especially His Holiness Dalai Lama, Kyabje Lama, Zopa Rinpoche. Please also pray for people who have recently died, who are sick. So a lady who used to come to the Sunday morning sessions at Delhi, Balli, she passed away a few days ago, very peacefully apparently. And please pray for people who are sick, ill, Anushri's mother, so many people getting sick again with COVID and other things. May they be free of their sickness. May beings never be separated from the holy Dharma. And may our lives be infinitely meaningful for others. And through our practicing the meaning of these 8 verses, may we have really, what shall I say? Very wonderful, happy lives based on having totally transformed our minds. Yeah. So in this way, I hope the session has been meaningful. Nice to see you all again. Thank you very, very, very much. And take care, everybody. Keep well and keep out of harm's way, so forth. Okay, good night, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Yeah. Stop.